Welcome to the deep dive.
Hello.
So today we're jumping into the 2024 remake of Until Dawn. You know, the horror game from back in 2015.
Yeah, big one back then.
Definitely. We've been looking through reviews from places like Time, The Guardian, Tech Radar, The Star, even Sina Games and GameSpot.
Quite a spread.
Right. And the goal is really to figure out what makes this remake stand out, or, you know, maybe where it stumbles, according to the critics.
Okay, sounds good. Well, the original Until Dawn was pretty groundbreaking for its time, wasn't it? Mostly because of that butterfly effect system.
Exactly. That comes up constant.
Where, like, every little choice you make could completely change who lives and who dies. It was all about your choices having actual weight. You know, survival, morality, relationships between the characters.
Yeah, and that core idea, it seems, is still a huge draw. The reviews really praise how it makes each playthrough feel kind of unique.
Gives it that replayability factor. People love comparing notes like, oh, you got that ending.
Totally. So, beyond the story mechanic, what about the technical side? The remake looks different, right?
Oh yeah, big visual overhaul. They moved it to Unreal Engine 5.
Ah, okay. So that means what? Better graphics?
Definitely. Think much more realistic lighting, which is huge for horror atmosphere.
Yeah.
Better textures, more detailed character models, smoother animations. Mostly.
Lovely. Good
Yeah.
build.
We'll get to that. But yeah, Tech Radar was pretty positive about the visuals. They also mentioned the PS5 controller, the DualSense.
Oh, the haptics.
Exactly.
Correct.
Using that feedback to make things like, you know, jump scares or tense moments feel more immersive. You actually feel it.
Huh. That sounds pretty cool, actually. Like, it could really ramp up the tension.
They can, yeah.
Yeah.
But there's always a but.
Uh-oh. Performance issues.
Seems like it.
Yeah.
The Star, for instance, reported some frame drops, performance hiccups in certain scenes.
Oof. Yeah, that can kill the mood fast in a horror game. Pulls you right out.
Exactly. Breaks that immersion they worked so hard to build with the new engine and the controller stuff. So, you know, a bit of a mixed bag on the technical front.
Right. And what about the story itself, the pacing? Did the remake change much there?
Well, the core story's the same, but Sina Games brought up an interesting point about the pacing.
Oh, yeah.
They felt it started strong, really suspenseful, but maybe faltered a bit in the second half.
How so? Like, what changed?
It seems like it maybe leaned more heavily on QuickTime events, QTEs, later on, and maybe more on the obvious supernatural stuff, potentially losing some of that psychological edge the original had.
Interesting. So less subtle dread, more action and overt stares later?
Potentially, yeah. It's a tricky balance, isn't it, getting that right? And speaking of visuals, again, something GameSpot mentioned was the character animations.
Weren't they motion captured? With like Rami Malek and Hayden Panettiere?
They were, yeah. Big names. But GameSpot felt that sometimes, especially the facial expressions, could look a little stiff.
Really? Even
No.
with mocap?
Apparently. And, you know, if you don't quite buy the character's fear or emotions, it can weaken that connection. Makes the choices feel a bit less impactful, maybe.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially when the whole point is caring about whether these characters survive based on your actions.
Exactly. So putting it all together,
Well-
what's the general vibe?
Well, it sounds like visually it's a pretty stunning update. Definitely modernizes the look and feel, uses the new tech like the DualSense quite well.
And it keeps that core butterfly effect
Uh-huh.
gameplay, which is arguably the main draw.
Right.
But, yeah, there are those technical hitches, the frame drops, some concerns about the narrative pacing in the back half, and maybe some animation weirdness that can, you know, occasionally break the immersion.
So not quite perfect, but still worthwhile. One review we saw, I think it gave it a 7.5 out of 10.
Sounds about right. Called it something like a beautifully eerie return worth playing, especially for newcomers.
Okay, so a solid remake, updates the visuals nicely, keeps the core strength, but maybe doesn't iron out all the wrinkles and perhaps introduces one or two new ones.
This seems like a fair summary of what the reviews are suggesting. It brings a classic into the modern era, mostly successful.
All right, so as we wrap up, here's something to think about, especially for you listening. When it comes to remaking a horror game like this, what do you think matters more? Nailing that cutting-edge visual fidelity, making it look amazing?
Or is it more crucial to perfect the narrative pacing, making sure the scares and the tension land just right, even if the graphics aren't absolutely top tier?
Interesting question. Visuals versus pacing in horror remakes. Something to chew on. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.